Hi, welcome to Success Matrix. My name is Nancy Chin Wagner, and I am a networking guru, empowering and coaching business professionals to network with confidence and to focus on genuine connections globally.
And I'm Brent Holtman, and I help people to attract and inspire high-performance teams. Today we have Dan Pellegrino, and Dan is a partner with Forbes M&A. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Nancy.
And Dan, what I want to ask you is that for you, if you can explain a little bit about Forbes M&A. You have a large team under your belt there in the company, so we'd like to hear more about that.
Yeah, so Forbes M&A is a Denver-based investment bank, and what that means, and I get this a lot, is do we do investments and are we a bank? And the answer is no and no. I don't know where the name actually comes from. It's something from Wall Street. But what we do, we're based here in Denver. We have about 20 people, say, in the group, and we have another office in Salt Lake City, which we opened up a couple of years ago and has a few people there. And we do business nationally as well as internationally. We are what we would call a boutique middle market group, and that means we would do deals, we do transactional deals. And by transactional deals, what I mean is it's a sell side deal. We work with business owners who own businesses in the lower middle market to either cash out equity or raise growth capital, or sometimes that means minority recapping or majority recapping. Sometimes it's a full sale. And sometimes we work with companies when they're looking to buy. And when they're looking to buy another company or grow through acquisition, that is usually we're working on a transaction as well as raising capital on both sides. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach there. So that's what we do as a company. I specifically focus on software and technology, and that's where I primarily put my time and effort. We're a little unique in the investment banking world in that we usually bring in people with some really relevant experience. Like, for example, I'm not a career investment banker. I've owned my own businesses before and sold my own companies before, and I came from a different world before that in consulting. We've got other people in a similar boat, and we also pair our teams together so that when we do work with a client, we're working with a team that's perfectly fit for that client, and that includes two senior people.
Well, that seems like a lot of moving parts, and with the, shall we say, turmoil that is business today, being a business that works with businesses, it's going to be really interesting to get some perspective from you. Our standard questions are, what's your greatest strength? And that, that can be personal and or business. What's your greatest opportunity? And again, that can be individual or for the practice. And then finally, what are the three actions that you're taking to leverage your strength to realize the potential of that opportunity?
Yeah, I can go into that. Those, obviously you gave those questions to me ahead of time, so I did have time to think through them a little bit. I think the first question, what is your greatest strength, is an interesting question because I haven't necessarily pondered on that in a while. That's kind of an interview type question when you're trying to get your first job out of college and nobody really knows what their strengths are anyway.
Right.
At the time. I did think about it, and I think I just before I answer it, I do want to say that I think that's something that's important actually. And for people, if there's people watching this that are maybe moving themselves up through the corporate ladder and looking for how their career is going to look, I'd say that identifying what your strengths are quickly is a very nice thing to do. And also what it does is it helps you to figure out where you play. And I like to look at things as a team. If you had someone who's an incredible first baseman and someone who's an incredible pitcher, well, they're very different skill sets. It doesn't mean that one person's going to be unsuccessful. It just means they have to find their place on the team.
Right.
And I think when you're giving feedback to junior staff as well, most of the time when corporations go through their review process, you're usually saying, well, here's all the things you've done great, and here's the places you need to work on. And if everybody only focused on their weaknesses, you just have a bunch of average players out there. And so I think you do need to focus on your strengths. And then obviously you want to make sure you're not falling on the ground flat on your face when it does come to your weaknesses. So you do need to get better, but knowing what your strengths are can really help you figure out where your niche is. So when I think about my strengths and kind of what I've done so far and where I've gotten to, I think I look at it in four words, and they all kind of come and relate together. So I have curiosity, adventure, intuition, and adaptability. And so when I think about that, I think, I'm a naturally curious person. I've always wanted to understand why and how, and ask a lot of questions, and I look stuff up all the time, random things that are mundane to the average person. I look up, why is there 24 hours on a clock, or, in our time, and just random stuff like that, just because I'm curious. It's just literally because I'm curious. And I think part of that takes hold in the business world in a lot of ways. Asking why a lot of times can help you get to look at things differently and better and challenge the status quo. And a lot of people don't challenge the status quo. And I think, you should challenge the status quo. May be the best way to do it, but at least ask why and how. And then I think that leads to adventure. Adventure was the next one, and curiosity leads to that. I think I personally have a need for excitement and just new explorations. I don't like repetition or getting into a groove. And I don't think everybody's like that. I think there are people that like getting into repetition and like getting into the groove, and I don't. But that's what I'm looking for. And I love trying the new things and new experiences. And so that culminates in business as well as personal, travel, different new foods, or mastering something new. Especially when I'm bored of something else, I want to try to master something. What that leads to, I think after you've learned those things and those things have come to fruition, I think that's where you start getting better intuition. And intuition really helps you survive those adventures. And, I guess it could be called, I guess you could look at it as street smarts a little bit, but it's that intuitive part of things that helps you avoid trouble, helps you read people, and it helps in business, especially when you're reading someone's body language or their reaction to something. And in my world, where it's a very high stakes world, our clients are either, if they're selling their company, that's probably the biggest thing biggest financial decision, emotional decision, and actual decision that they probably have made in their life from that perspective. And it gets emotional and it gets stressful, and it does. I literally just closed a deal yesterday. So it was high stakes all the way to the end. And you've got to be able to read exactly why someone is anxious. And it's a lot of times not exactly what they're telling you it is. And that's partly because they probably don't know themselves. Mm-hmm. So if you can get that, you can really move things along much better if you can somehow figure those things out. And then I think once that happens, then the key to everything is, if you can get all that, but you're not able to adapt to anything, then it's pretty much worthless. You have to be able to adapt and roll with the punches. And it's something that a lot of people have actually noted in me, that I can kind of adapt to whatever situation. And, if you have this, it's, I think if you don't do it, you're kind of more of a dreamer. You wish you could do it. How many times have you heard people say, oh, I wish I could do something like XYZ, like what you do? And I always go, why don't you? Why don't you do it? So it's just something about acting on it as well. And, I think someone once said that it's not the strong that survive, it's the most adaptable. And I think that's definitely true. And you got to roll with the punches. You got to be able to see what's coming up next and be able to anticipate what the change is going to be. And I have a story, actually. This is kind of the story I have that helps with a lot of this. It kind of rolls it all in. And I had a client that was, he was a Chinese national, but based out of Vancouver. And I knew him from being in Los Angeles. And he had a company that had offices in Los Angeles, Vancouver, Hong Kong, and China. And we were trying to get a deal done. And we had a buyer that was interested, and the buyer was out of Singapore. And I remember one Saturday night, my wife and I went on a double date with some friends, and we were at a pizza restaurant, and I kept getting my cell phone just kept ringing from a number from China. And I kept thinking, I did not know who it was. And I was like, why does this keep happening? Why does it keep ringing? So I finally answered it, and it was my client, and he was in China, and he said, "Hey, Dan, you have to come to China tomorrow. You have to fly tomorrow morning to be here. I want to fly in the buyer, and we want to have a meetings in China, and you need to be here for the week, but you got to leave tomorrow morning." And this was Saturday night. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll be on the plane tomorrow, And so literally I got up in the morning and I went to the airport and I flew, and I didn't know where I was going. He told me to just show up to Hong Kong. So I fly into Hong Kong, and somebody is holding a sign, Mr. Pellegrino. Okay, so I go with this person. He doesn't speak English, brings me to somebody else who does speak English, who says, okay, we need to keep you here to get a Chinese visa in Hong Kong, we can't get it for 24 hours. So you just need to stay here, but we'll put you in this hotel and we'll just meet with you. And then I'll bring you to the office tomorrow morning, and then you have the whole day to do whatever you want. So that's what I did. And I just kind of explored Hong Kong that day after the visa meeting, and somehow I got my visa, and then they put me on a plane to some city I'd actually never heard of in China. And I flew there, and the same thing happened. People picked me up and put me in a van, and nobody spoke English. And we started driving, and I didn't have cell reception. And it was about a 5-hour drive up into the mountains. And I just did not know where I was going. And I thought this was like an episode of a social experiment or something like that I was part of. But we ended up getting to this small village is where my client actually grew up. And that's why I wanted to meet there. And there was a hotel there. It was kind of some sort of tourist area, but it was in the middle. It was in the middle of the mountains in China. It was pretty far away. And, the whole thing was great. And when I came back and I told my wife about it, she says, "You're the only person I know that could do anything like that. And this job is perfect for you." And that's what it is. That's what I mean by all these things. It's just, you got to have the intuition to make sure you're doing the right thing. But if you're not rolling with punches and you're not adaptable, sometimes things get by.
That's brilliant. I love that story. And you really encapsulated the essence of all the questions right into those 4 words and that great story. So thank you so much. That was really fun. And hopefully there was a lot for people to take away. I know for myself, I really wish I'd been writing down notes, because that really was relevant stuff. So Dan, really, thank you very much. This has been really a pleasure, and look forward to next time we get to connect.
Yes, I really appreciate you coming on, and I got those 4 words on my little iPhone, so I'm going to share it with Brent here, and I really appreciate it. And I'm telling you, you took a risk, and you just did it. And so it shows that you are adaptable, and your curiosity and your adventuresome got you going there, and you met with your client. Awesome. Didn't even know what you were going or where you were going, but you did it. So we thank you, and we thank our viewers, and appreciate you coming on with us. See you next time on Successful Matrix.
Thank you.
Thanks.